Welcome back to another week of Balanced Beings Uncut, where we talk about health, wellness, and everything in between.
Welcome back.
What are we talking about today? This is a juicy podcast. MTHFR, what is it, Madison?
Oh, well. MTHFR is a gene code, so it's methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase, or the motherfucker gene.
The motherfucker gene. Madison is the MTHFR queen, if we label it ourselves. Achievement found the MTHFR gene in me.
Maybe like a duchess, maybe not queen. I don't know if we can go that far.
But she knows a lot, and we're going to talk about MTHFR, what it means, actually understanding it.
And the big breakdown of methylation.
A big breakdown of it, methylation,
I butcher it,
how it impacts everything, homocysteine links, CoQ10 links, talking about the hormone links, the mood links, the acne links, all to the motherfucking gene.
Yeah. So I always go in two different tangents with genes. So sometimes I'm like, we can treat without knowing the genes. But the more that we know about genes, the more I'm like, everybody needs a genetic test. We need to know these little snips and little nuances, and it can be a game changer for some people, really, when we start looking at genes.
It was a game changer for me. Well, we can use me as a case.
Yeah, so there's quite a few different gene SNPs and gene codes, and MTHFR is one of the most well-known, but it's not the only one in the entire methylation cycle. So there's also MTHFR and COMT as well, so catechol methyltransferase as well.
But the reason we talk about MTHFR and the reason everyone talks about it so much is because 40% or more of the population in the world have it. So about half the population has MTHFR. Most people don't even know they've got it. And it links to so many things from cardiovascular issues, acne,
recurrent miscarriages,
panic attacks, anger attacks,
brain
miscarriages,
fog,
cardiovascular disease.
Yeah. Cardiovascular disease is a really hidden one. So we're looking at the folate cycle within methylation. So methylation's all about DNA coding, DNA, RNA, all of that. So when we're looking at the folate cycle, we've got a SNP within that cycle, which is MTHFR. So when you've got MTHFR, there's two different codes of this. So there's the C677T or the A198C gene. Now, you can either be homozygous or heterozygous. So anybody that did grade 12 biology, I hope you remember this. So homozygous or heterozygous. So heterozygous, you've got one copy. Homozygous, you've got two copies. So when we're looking at MTHFR, you've pretty much essentially got four different ones that you can have. So you can have two of one of each, or none. And a lot of people go, oh, I've got MTHFR, I've been tested. And I ask them, okay, which one? Most of the time people will go, yeah, I've got MTHFR, but actually knowing that specific code that you have, and if you've got one or two copies, can be life-changing.
And it shows how much loss of function you have. Some people have, I've had someone with 90% loss of function.
Yeah.
I've had someone with people with 70%, 40%. I think myself, is it 70 or 40 that I have?
I think you're around 60, yeah.
60% loss of function. So when we mean loss of function, that means that we have a loss of function in that methylation cycle.
In that folate cycle in particular, and then that breaks down to the entire methylation cycle. So if you've got MTHFR, depending on which ones you have, it's between 20 and 80 to 90% loss of function. So that also means that you can't synthesize things like synthetic folic acid. So on fortified foods, so look at the back of your Nutri-Grain, look at the back of a generic bread packet. Enriched is another way that they term it as well. So
and you can't break it down to just building up in your body and making everything worse.
Yep. So you have this increase.
Vegemite, bread, pasta,
all of that. Pretty much anything gluten-based, because wheat is sprayed with folic acid, and so you're not going to be able to break down this folic acid. You have a buildup of that. It can increase, worsen symptoms of things like bipolar, schizophrenia. It can worsen mood disorders, depression, fatigue, brain fog. Even postpartum depression is huge as well. So following back from last week's podcast.
And then also we see kids that have ADHD, autism, sensory issues with that MTHFR gene mutation making their symptoms worse. So once we've managed that and we've went through their actual gene screening and their DNA and MTHFR results, we find that a lot of times when we start managing that with whatever they need, some people, they need some activated folate, we need things like magnesium to help with methylation, supporting that detoxification pathway. These kids' symptoms reduced by 50 to 70% just through doing that MTHFR work.
Yeah, and just understanding it and how, even diet and lifestyle. So if you've got MTHFR, a huge dietary recommendation is to be gluten-free. And that helps with your detoxification. It helps to reduce inflammation through the body because, we're breaking down all of that through methylation. So, but it's not as clean cut as, Brooke, you've got MTHFR, your kids have got MTHFR. So we've genetic tested you and Sterling and Indy, and
they've both got
I think you and Indy are the same. Are you and Indy the same? Because I know Sterling's slightly different.
I think that Sterling's the same as Indy.
Okay.
So they've got it from both parents.
Yeah, they've got one of each.
So they're actually worse off than me, unfortunately.
So is that something, if you were to procreate again, that you'd genetic screen?
Genetic screen your husband before you reproduce with him so they don't have the MTHFR gene.
Or just check, just to know.
Before you get married.
I don't know, we laughed about that a little while ago, just like...
So we're going to talk a bit more now about MTHFR and the link with homocysteine. So let's talk about that a little bit more because people know both of those, but they also don't know how it kind of works and how it links.
So homocysteine, if you're getting it checked through your GP, it's usually a marker for cardiovascular disease. So ideally, we naturopathically want it between 5 and 7, and lower levels can be also detrimental, but we don't want it any higher than 7. So anything higher than 7, we're starting to see hyperhomocystinemia.
Here I was at 21 when you checked me.
Yeah, and it is scary high for some people, and that increases your risk and likelihood of cardiovascular disease. So usually GPs are only screening it if you're at a cardiovascular disease risk, kind of if you're over 50 is usually when they're looking at it, or if you're saying that you're having heart palpitations, they might look at it. So we're looking at it through the lens of, I call it the angry parent marker sometimes.
Or when we have mean people that send us emails, we're like, oh, homocysteine must be up.
Yeah, so there's, as you start understanding...
Inability to regulate that emotion.
Yeah.
And emotional control. Even myself, I was getting like anger attacks, constantly anxious, having panic attacks, like complete lack of mood regulation, even with the typical things we've tried, like nutrient supplementation, blood sugar regulation. When that happens, that's when we're like...
magnesium, it's not cutting it.
When those things don't cut it, that's when we know, okay, there's something gene-wise going on. We need to check homocysteine.
There's something deeper. And when you're seeing sensory or a few different things that come across for the whole family, that's a huge gene link. That's something that you can't push away, and it's definitely something worth looking at. So I've tested quite a few mums now for homocysteine, and I've seen it elevated in 9 times out of 10 of the ones that I've tested. I've tested it for myself. Mine came back at, I think, 11.5, so double where I'd want it to be. And what was yours?
21. So like some key examples for symptoms for kids and for older adults and for us is mood like dysregulation, anxiety, anger attacks, panic attacks, and those symptoms also worsening after alcohol use, or the next day getting really bad hangovers, or feeling like a really bad come down even from alcohol is such a key sign that you've got homocysteine issues, likely from an MTHFR gene strain. So for me, like I had all those symptoms. My child has sensory issues. Indiana, she is like the type of kid that if she gets in trouble, she'll just start crying. That lack of emotional regulation is from that MTHFR gene.
A lot of central nervous system stuff as well. So perfectionist traits is a huge one that comes through.
ADHD, all those symptoms.
Yeah, and then when we're looking through the methylation cycle, so we have an increased homocysteine, we then typically see an increased histamine as well, and that's when we start seeing histaminosis, heavy, painful, clotty periods,
sinus issues,
eczema, headaches, brain fog, painful ovulation, pain prior to getting your period, and then doing all of that hormonal work, and then it just coming back
Exactly, and we'll go to a hormonal link with MTHFR in a sec. But even with I feel like my whole family is linking up with this MTHFR picture, because even my father, he's found that he's got like plague build-up in his arteries, which again can be from high homocysteine levels. So checking that cardiovascular risk for him now, and going to check homocysteine again, because it runs in the family, this gene fragments and strains. But yeah, talking about what we would do supplement wise, and where to go and what to do if you've got this.
So I talk about this in my consults all the time, about hearing podcasts talk about MTHFR before, and people go in about like, okay, you need to be on this supplement, this supplement, and this supplement. And I cringe when I hear that, because there's one which can be absolutely life-changing for the right person if you need it. So that's SAMe. So it's S-adenosine methionine.
But it can actually make things worse.
It can make things worse.
So much worse.
And I listened to a podcast where they were saying, okay, anybody with MTHFR should be on SAMe, or everybody should be on SAMe.
We as naturopaths won't never even give you SAMe unless we've actually tested your homocysteine, because it's such a risky game.
It's like, okay, I want you to try this for 3 days. If you get heart palpitations, if you have increased anxiety, stop taking it. And because with methylation and MTHFR, you can be an over-methylator or an under-methylator, and that can swing throughout the day. So you can actually be an over-methylator in the morning and an under-methylator at night, and you can also swing really quickly. So as we started bringing down your homocysteine, I had you on hero doses of SAMe. But we got to a point where I knew it was time to retest.
Because I was feeling anxious and getting angry when I was taking it, instead of the opposite, a calming effect. And that's when I knew that I had switched from under to over.
Yeah, and that's when we pulled it right back. So I think then we retested and you were around 8. And that's the point where we pulled it right back to like 200 milligrams instead of, I think I had you up to what, 800, 1600, something?
800 milligrams.
Yeah, 800 milligrams. But that was life-changing for you. So
it was.
Describe like your symptom picture at the start too.
Yep, so like complete anger, like one thing could happen and my life is falling apart, and I just couldn't regulate my emotions, and I would just feel so angry all the time, and just wonder what is wrong with me, and then having a calming effect, being able to juggle like 10 things at once, not feeling that sense of constant overwhelm or fatigue as well either, having so much more energy.
I remember your brain fog was really bad.
My brain fog and memory was really bad. I don't have memory issues or brain fog anymore, or any headaches. All of those symptoms went away, and then my hormones actually start to get better because of this as well. And we'll talk about why now, but my cycles became more regular, my bleeding became more normalised, I didn't have as bad PMS, I had no breast tenderness, no period pain anymore.
Yeah, because you had a bit of PMDD from like ovulation onwards.
Yeah. So I still get that dip and change in mood a little bit with my hormones, and that's because I've got high estrogen, I've got high testosterone, and I've got low progesterone, and that's because a lot of times if you've got MTHFR gene defect, and it's unmanaged, your hormones will become fucked from it, and that will be the first sign.
Yeah, and it's because methylation has got to do with clearance of excess estrogen. So if you have
detoxification and elimination,
there's like fibroids and endo, and if you're looking at those more clearer, high, heavy estrogen pictures, adenomyosis, all of that, that's when I start going like, okay, it's worthwhile looking at your genes as well, rule in or rule out, because there's different nutrients and different support as well, and different things to avoid. So with MTHFR, we said before, getting off of gluten, making sure that you're supporting those detoxification pathways.
You're using activated folate, you're supporting, trampolining, exercising every day.
Yeah, getting all of that out. And then managing that homocysteine. So did you ever feel like heart palpitations when your homocysteine was high, or like a tight chest with anxiety?
I would get a tight chest,
Yeah, and that's one that I go through with my clinical questioning in my consults now, is with mums in particular. I haven't really tested homocysteine in many of the men that I've seen yet, just because they haven't had that clear picture. But yeah, I'm just like, how are you with the kids? Are you finding yourself more angry and eruptive? Are you finding yourself really quick to flip the switch? that feels like one of the biggest homocysteine links for me that I've noticed through clinical case taking, and then obviously the other side effects as well. So I did some really good clearance and management for a client of mine, and then we came off of everything we pulled off, and then she's just like, I feel bad again. So I checked it, and her homocysteine was at 16. So it's definitely something to work for. And sometimes I do both at the same time, and then sometimes we might look at other ones as well. So there's only 2 MTHFR that are associated with an increased likelihood of blood homocysteine level rises.
And that's why not everyone should be on semi.
Yeah.
Because you might not have a rise in homocysteine.
Yeah. And that's why it's worth checking in on and working with a practitioner base. And Sammy's a practitioner-only product in Australia, and it very well should be, because it can flip the switch really, really quickly if you don't need it. But yeah, if you're getting those signs of like heavy painful periods, PMDD, we had some social media stories about a client that was suffering with really bad PMDD, and Sammy was a huge life changer for her.
So if you have hormone issues and you've got brain fog, or you've got headaches, or you've got fatigue, it's a likelihood that if you're stopping herbs and compounds and you find that comes back with your naturopath and then you go back on it, if you don't reach homeostasis and it goes backwards from stopping supplementation or hormone work, then that's a sign that you've got something causing that, like a gene defect. So yeah, I find when I've got clients that coming in the clinic and we've got detoxification and hormone issues, a lot of times if we've got hormone and detox issues, what I'll do is I'll test them for the MTHFR gene strain, especially if I find that the hormones are getting better on herbs and through detoxification and elimination, but then the problem's coming back once we stop. That's a really, really big sign that they've got that gene defect going on. So if someone's got high testosterone, high estrogen, it's because they're having a problem with clearing that out. Why have they got a problem clearing it out? Because they've got a gene that's impacting that methylation detoxification pathway of those actual hormones. So again, in order to manage your hormones long term, you need to manage the actual gene that's involved.
See a lot of kids with neurodivergency as well, and it goes into it so much. MTHFR.
You can't, if your kid has any neurodivergence going on, you need to check this gene. If you've got any hormone issues going on that keep coming back, or acne or mood issues, you need to check this gene. And it's a buccal swab, so it's a swab in the mouth, known as an MTHFR buccal swab. Get your homocysteine levels checked if you've got those specific genes that raise that homocysteine, and get that B12 and folate tested as well. Yeah, because that's there's different, obviously, nuances with using activated folate and making sure that we've got like your B12 above 600. So I've had people come to me and they're like, my B12's fine. It's all good. And I think the cutoff is 300. They want it between 300 and 600. So we want it around 600. That's really protective. So I've also seen really worsened side effects of vegetarians if they have MTHFR, because your B12 is really, really found in like your red meat and stuff. So if you've got that low B12, low folate ongoing through pathology, that's also a big indicator there as well. If you've got heavy blood loss, it's that chicken and the egg again of like low iron, you'll have more blood loss, but more blood loss, you're losing all the things that help create your iron as well, which can worsen that MTHFR expression. So yeah, hormones is a huge link with MTHFR and something to definitely not overlook. If someone's got acne as well, a lot of those detoxification pathways. Acne a lot of times will happen because we are having problems with detoxification and elimination. So we're having this toxin buildup, even eczema as well. So this toxin buildup is stopping. We're not having that elimination pathway happen, probably because of methylation issues, right? Yeah. Which then is causing this acne. And that could be from hormones or different types of toxins that are just not being properly cleared out through the body, causing acne and eczema. So if you're getting those and you've tried a lot of things, then it's probably time to check your genes. Yeah. And that's like, I've sent family members to check their genes and check their homocysteine, because once you know, you just know. Like, you can just tell if somebody's got... When I'm out in public and someone's being a bitch, or they're on the train, micromanaging, perfectionist, or like people that are like shouting and just getting angry, or they're like swearing, driving in the car, or they're beeping, eruptive. You just know that if they're very abrupt and can't control their emotions, MTHFR. Even when we get some emails from clients, we'll have a little inside joke in the Balance Beings clinic. Obviously, love all our clients, but we're like, test MTHFR, because if people are quite rude and can't control their emotions, it's such a big sign of MTHFR. And we're like, oh, they've got that.
Or just like, a big one that I see is inability to switch off. And it's that like go, go, go. That can be a really big sign for MTHFR as well. That like, how would
and knowing that it doesn't have to be like that, you can work with somebody and actually help regulate that out. But remembering, because it is genes, you're going to have support forever. It's not something you can undo. It's your genes, they're set in stone.
Yeah, and that's what I love about gene testing as well, because it's not going to change, and you're putting that investment into checking out your genetic markers, and it can change so much. So we run a genetic test. So it's pretty much one or the other. If I had to sway somebody into doing a bigger genetic test, I would, because it's got heaps more nuances. So when we're looking at MTHFR buccal swab, you're just taking MTHFR. But when you're going through
other genes,
when you're going through a gene marker test as well, still same buccal swab, but it gives you a breakdown of what are you prone to, what do you need more of. It gives you a diet support, it gives you personalized blood work as well.
We love it.
But it also shows so many other genes as well, so things like COMT,
which I have, of course.
And COMT, one of the biggest things I noticed with COMT, so there's things that you need to avoid. Turmeric can also be a big methyl donor as well, so that's that methylation, so you're donating that methyl group to support that methylation. But with COMT, quercetin, green tea, chocolate and turmeric can all be really excitatory almost to the gene. And one client I had, as I was reading into COMT further, one client I had that was on, she had a big histaminosis picture, and she was on quercetin, because quercetin is great to help down-regulate high histamine. But if you have COMT, this can be really negative. And I have this conversation with the Nats all the time, that as we know more, I want to test more, to know more like as well. And it can be
the
really...
The more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah. And it can be very vicious to go down that cycle as well, because now I want to test everybody, like everything for everybody. But I always say, like, a genetic test is amazing.
A genetic and a microbiome test will be our top two Balance Beings picks if we're going to pick anything.
Yeah, and that can be just life-changing, even for clients with like pandas, neurodivergency, checking in on that genetic marker, especially if there's a family history and family tendency of it. That's a huge genetic sign. But it also shows us that COMT. So this client that I had, she said that she could not go to sleep. So she's coming in for sleep support, and she had this big histaminosis picture. So we're working on that, and then we had a look at some genes, and I had her on quercetin to help downregulate her histaminosis picture. And then we looked at the genes, and she said, I just can't sleep. There's music playing, like I lay down and I just hear music.
I have that all the time.
And as I was learning more about COMT and doing this big deep dive...
Apparently people don't have one?
No. Do you have an inner monologue? Nah, see, I don't. It's just silent.
So weird to me.
It's silent, so I get really lost sometimes because I'm not like pre-thinking about my next stuff, because it's just... And I think it's like 50% of the population doesn't have an inner monologue. So like my husband, he has to sleep with a fan or something going, and I'd say it's his COMT now, knowing this, and this is just making connections as I'm talking. So he has to have sound going to dull that, whereas I can sleep in dead silence and be quite comfortable with it.
Have something.
Well. But you've got COMT. I wonder, make a mental note, genetic test myself as I'm saying how important it is. But yeah, so she was on quercetin, and that really heightened that sleep, that loudness. So there's also supplements like trimethylglycine, so TMG, that helps to quieten
some TMG.
The mind. So when you start on TMG, how was your sleep?
My sleep got a lot better, but what I noticed is just like my mind was more calm. I wasn't like just thinking so much.
Yeah, less inner monologue-y.
Yeah, I felt like how Madison felt for a day.
Yeah.
So I'm a Team G fan.
Yeah. I've got my own like little compounds at home, and I will just.
You just dip.
Oh no, not for myself.
Oh, good.
If there's certain family members that are having little minty bees, I'm just like, TMG. We got the Sammy in the fridge.
Their food, mix it up.
Yeah. So I was actually dosing myself with Sammy because my homocysteine was high. I was having some TMG that was quite comfortable for me as well, and then I had Sammy, and I was super anxious and eruptive because mine wasn't as high as yours.
Yeah.
So I didn't need to be on it as long term, but I do know I need to check in on that more frequently if I'm prone to it as well.
Yeah, so if you've got the gene strains that are positive for increasing homocysteine, then it's good to be checking in every 6 months to 1 year on your homocysteine levels, because they're going to rise and fall as you change your dietaries, as you change your supplementation, as you drink alcohol, as you exercise, as you're pregnant. All of these things
you need a post-Europe
and
check.
increase. I need a post-Europe check. I was drinking every day. It was worth it.
Little less.
But I was having Sammy every day after my alcohol consumption.
And then, we went back on some hormonal clearance support as well.
I've got pimples everywhere, and that's because of my detoxification pathways from alcohol consumption every day because of my gene.
Did it make you need more alcohol? The gene? You're like, I drank alcohol.
Alcohol addict tendencies are way more common with people that have high homocysteine.
Yeah, so
I'm addicted to alcohol.
Oh, Jesus. You're addicted to work. You're addicted to success.
I am not. I'd be fine without it. I'd tell myself
Radio.
to bed.
Yeah. What were you doing before I got here today? Working?
No, it was on my bike.
Okay. Are you addicted to your bike?
I like adrenaline.
Yeah, adrenaline junkie. So there's a lot to do with neurotransmitters and MTHFR as well. So
adrenaline is
serotonin and dopamine. Huge impact in serotonin and dopamine with ADHD. So there's a huge methylation and ADHD link based off of neurotransmitters.
So that's why you should get your son and daughter checked.
Your son, you're just like straight that it is quite high with males. But yeah, my son has ADHD. His father has ADHD. My husband has ADHD.
You like those ADHD people, don't you?
It touches most men in my life. And we are going down the dives of genetic testing, looking at MTHFR, looking at how we can support that. So my son works really well off of TMG and also magnesium. Magnesium's huge, and it's still you really need
non-negotiables.
Magnesium, zinc, SAMI, TMG, CoQ10. All of these are great if you have methylation. If you're working with a prac, activated folate, amazing. So there's also a big link with postpartum depression and methylation. So I don't know if we can say...
there's a rise postpartum in homocysteine.
Yeah, and then there's also a certain brand name, prenatal, which actually more than just a certain brand name, but a very heavily prescribed... She went there. Prenatal. That
don't ever go on Elevate. If you come on Elevate, we'll laugh at you.
# no. We will get you off of it straight away. So pretty much the best sides of Elevate is that it has got the highest recommended intake of iron in the crappiest, absolute most synthetic dog water form of iron.
So we've got this theory here with MTHFR and miscarriages. So the stat is 40% of people have MTHFR gene strain, right? And it causes miscarriages through a rise in homocysteine. So homocysteine increases risk of miscarriages. And if we're not on active folate when we fall pregnant, and we've got MTHFR gene strain without knowing, 40% of the population, 40% of women, then what's going to happen is we're going to have a miscarriage.
And that's
why you need to be on activated folate and not folic acid as a prenatal.
Yeah. And that's
best.
Your neural tubes close off around, I think it's 20 days after conception. So that's after most people know that they're pregnant. How far along were you when you found out you were pregnant?
I was 5 weeks.
And that was, were you just like late?
Yeah.
And then you found out? Yeah. So were you on supplementation prior to conceiving? No. And that's, checking in on these markers.
But I was very lucky because I was eating healthy, didn't drink alcohol. Was
17, so it was illegal.
Foods.
Yes.
I was 20 when I fell pregnant.
Oh, no, I was.
19.
That was me. I was 17.
I was 17. Fucking hell. What comes in the balance being strained. Unplanned pregnancies.
Run in the BB fam. Get that genetically tested. So, yeah, those neural tubes close off, and that's when you actually need folic acid. Oh, God, no, you don't need folic acid. That's when you need folate before you even know that you're pregnant. And that's why preconception care is such an important scope of naturopathic medicine. And it's, if I could emphasize anything with this podcast, is make sure that you are doing your preconception care. Make sure that you're checking in on these markers. Make sure that you're on the right folate.
3 months prior to you falling pregnant, that DNA is forming.
So neural tubes is everything midline. So that's where like the neural tubes connect, and that's midline. So that's when we start seeing cleft lip, cleft palate. And this is a big indicator through my clinical case taking if there's MTHFR throughout the family as well. Because if we're thinking midline, what's in the mouth and midline as well?
Lip ties?
And tongue ties, yeah, huge sign. So it doesn't necessarily mean 100% for sure. It could be that you're on the crappy forms of folic acid and it was built up and all of that. But that's a huge indicator. So huge like lung tie. Huge tongue tie. And that, so I was on a practitioner only, what I thought was a good quality prenatal when I was pregnant with Hamish. Turns out you look at the back of the label and it says, so even a near graduate prac, I gave myself the wrong prenatal. And it said with activated folate. So I was like, this is amazing. But you look on the back and it actually said 400 milligrams of synthetic folate. And Hamish came out and I was like, fuck is this motherfucking serpent tongue? He had the most restrictive tongue tie.
Baba.
And I remember I had a really long labor. It was horrible. And
so if your kid has tongue ties and lip ties, check your MTHFR gene and his and hers.
Yeah, so huge
It's such a big
indicator
sign.
there. So he had a complete tongue tie. So we got it revised and all of that. It's all fine now. But yeah, huge midline link. And then we see a really big rise of postnatal depression as well, because clients or people are taking this crappy form of synthetic folic acid, supplementing it throughout their entire pregnancy, and then like every bad mum that I know that stops taking their supplements in postpartum, they'll stop taking it. They have a rise of that synthetic folic acid built up because they don't know what to do with it. Their body can't process it because of MTHFR, and then that worsens their anxiety. It has increased homocysteine, postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, and that's because they're pulling away that synthetic folic acid, and then they're usually eating
Nothing.
toast, Wheat Bix. All of this has got, man, I'm going to be shunned from what's a brand? Centarium that does like Wheat Bix. I'm gonna be like,
fucking hate you.
I'm gonna be like,
do not eat sanitarium brand.
I'm gonna be like blacklisted from them.
They've got Rice Crisps that are okay.
As long as it doesn't have any
activated. Non-activated.
I know, it's like
folic acid.
It's like the biggest tongue tie.
Folic acid, no.
Folate, yes. Tick. Big green tick. So yeah, knowing what you're on during preconception, and that's why checking
and knowing if you've got the gene before you even fall pregnant, and checking homocysteine is going to be a massive indicator to your child's future health, your pregnancy stats,
your postpartum health,
and your child's risk of tongue and lip ties.
Yeah. And then you don't have to go through all of that.
And prevention is key. What we'll do is we'll add a little free handout about MTHFR and foods to avoid and foods to include in your diet as well on our website for you guys to have a little look at. And it's a great starting point. And then, get those genes tested.
Yeah, come book in, see us. We've got,
no appointments available at all.
Currently. So yeah, we work really well collaboratively all of us Nats. So we share all of our knowledge as well. So that's what I love about
That's why we
BB.
have the mentoring, and we have a group chat. We have one-on-one mentoring for 6 months. All your everyone's plans are checked over. So everyone's treatment's the same regardless of who you see. And that's what I made sure of. I didn't want the Balance Beings name just to be me. I wanted everyone else to treat the same.
And that's what I loved about starting there, is that you didn't say, oh no, only see Madison or only see Chloe Y.
Like doesn't matter who you see.
Everybody's across the exact same information, because we have monthly meetings and we go through all of it. So book in with absolutely anybody on our team. They're across methylation. They're across the correct supplements to do. They're across everything. And it's incredible.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Balance Beings Unhinged Health Journey. Until next time, may your days be balanced and your health be natural.